Did you know Apple's first logo didn't have an apple at all? It was a picture of Sir Isaac Newton sitting under a tree. And here's another cool fact. Apple once made a clothing line called the Apple Collection in the 1980s, complete with t-shirts, hats, and even a windbreaker jacket. Today, Apple is famous for the iPhone, iPads, and MacBooks, but its history is full of unexpected twists, bold ideas, and surprising products you've probably never heard of. So, how did this small company become one of the biggest tech giants in the world? Let's dive into the incredible story of Apple. It all started back in 1971 when Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, the two Steves, met through a friend named Bill Fernandez. At the time, Jobs was only 16 and Wozniak was 21. Their first business venture happened shortly after they met. Wozniak, a self-taught electronics expert, read about a device that could make free long-distance calls by emitting specific tones. He built blue boxes that could do this, even calling the Vatican pretending to be Henry Kissinger asking to speak to the Pope. Jobs saw the business potential, and together they sold around 200 of these boxes at $150 each, splitting the profits. Jobs later claimed that without those blue boxes, Apple may never have existed. In 1972, both Jobs and Wozniak left college. Wozniak created a video terminal that allowed him to connect to mini-computers. This small project hinted at their bigger ideas, which were also fueled by the counterculture spirit of the West Coast, where new ideas were often welcomed. In 1975, the two Steves were attending meetings at the Homebrew Computer Club, a place for computer enthusiasts. Inspired by new developments in microcomputers, Wozniak designed his own complete computer. Most chips were too expensive, but when a cheaper $20 chip, the 6502, came out, he built a working computer with it. By 1976, Wozniak's new computer was ready, and he demonstrated it at a club meeting. Jobs saw its potential and convinced Wozniak to start a company together. To fund their venture, Jobs sold his van for $1,500, and Wozniak sold his calculator for $500. They set up Apple Computer on April 1, 1976, along with Ronald Wayne, a friend who created Apple's first logo, an intricate image of Isaac Newton under an apple tree. Wayne, however, left after just 2 weeks, selling his 10% share for $800. By the way, that 10% would be worth billions today. They named it Apple, partly because Jobs was on a fruit diet and thought the name sounded fun and friendly. Their first product, the Apple I, was sold as a simple circuit board and could connect to a TV as a display. Jobs convinced a local store, the Byte Shop, to buy 50 units for $500 each. They assembled the computers by hand in the garage and delivered them on time, despite having little money for parts. The Apple I hit the markets in July of 1976 at $666.66 a unit. A price Woz picked just because he liked repeating numbers. The Apple I had a unique feature for its time, a TV display that could show text faster than many of the computers back then. It also had a startup code on ROM, making it easy to power on. Steve Wozniak created a cassette interface for loading programs quickly, earning him a reputation as a brilliant designer. Steve Jobs faced challenges in getting investments because banks thought a personal computer was a crazy idea. However, a chance meeting led Jobs to Mike Markkula, who believed in the product. Markkula invested $92,000 and secured additional funding, helping Apple become a formal corporation in January of 1977. Markkula brought in Michael Scott as Apple's first CEO since Jobs and Wozniak lacked experience. Wozniak quit his job at HP to work full-time on the new project, and he soon shifted focus from the Apple I to designing the Apple II. The Apple II was a huge step forward. It was introduced to the public in 1977, featuring a redesigned TV display that included graphics and colors. Jobs insisted on a sleek design and a built-in keyboard, making the computer ready to use out of the box. It originally used cassette tapes for storage, but soon switched over to floppy disks when the Disk 2 drive dropped, also designed by Wozniak. The Apple II gained popularity when VisiCalc, the first spreadsheet software, was released. It became a hit in offices, giving people a strong reason to buy the computer for home use. The Apple II series, known as one of the 1977 trinity of home computers, sold around 6 million units before being discontinued in 1993. After the success of the Apple II, Apple wanted a bigger share of the business market. They designed the Apple III, hoping it could compete against IBM. Released in 1980, it had a high price tag but some serious problems. Steve Jobs insisted on a fanless design, causing it to overheat. The chips inside would often disconnect due to the heat, and Apple's odd solution was to drop the computer from a small height to fix it. Despite a redesign in 1983, its reputation was already ruined, and the Apple III was a failure. In December of 1980, Apple made a big move by going public on the stock market. They sold 4.6 million shares, raising over $100 million, which was a record for a tech company since Ford's IPO in 1956. This made many people, including Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, instant millionaires. The event was so big that Apple held its first shareholder meeting in a large auditorium to accommodate everyone. In 1981, IBM entered the personal computer market, challenging Apple's dominance. While Apple had more experience and a larger base of loyal customers, IBM's arrival changed the game. The IBM PC quickly became popular, especially with businesses, and sales of Apple's computers began to drop. While Apple did struggle with the Apple III, they were also working on a revolutionary project called Lisa, featuring a new graphical user interface, GUI. Inspired by Xerox's ideas, the Lisa introduced icons, windows, and the concept of a mouse. However, it was very expensive and did not sell well. Meanwhile, Steve Jobs took over a separate project called the Macintosh, which was simpler and cheaper than the Lisa. In 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh with a dramatic Super Bowl commercial called 1984, directed by Ridley Scott. The ad presented the Macintosh as a symbol of freedom against the conformity of IBM. The Macintosh initially sold well, but struggled with limited software and slow performance. By 1985, tensions rose between Steve Jobs and Apple CEO John Sculley. Jobs wanted to focus solely on the Macintosh, while Sculley believed in supporting the successful Apple II. Their conflict led to a power struggle, with Sculley eventually pushing Jobs out of his role. Jobs left Apple and later founded a new company, Next. Steve Wozniak, who co-founded Apple with Jobs, became frustrated with the company's direction. He felt that Apple was losing its innovative spirit and decided to leave in 1985. He left on good terms and continued to support Apple at events. After Apple, Wozniak started a new venture to develop a universal remote control, showing his love for creating fun and practical gadgets. In 1985, Steve Jobs was removed as head of Apple's Macintosh division by John Sculley, with full board support. Jobs, unhappy with Sculley's control, tried to take over, but the board sided with Sculley, stripping Jobs of power. In defiance, Jobs resigned and sold nearly all his Apple shares, using the money to create Next, a company that built advanced computers. He also bought Pixar, which would later become a powerhouse in animation. While Next computers were expensive and not commercially successful, they influenced tech history by becoming the platform used to create the World Wide Web. Meanwhile, Sculley reorganized Apple, merging divisions and focusing on the Macintosh. Partnering with Adobe, Apple turned the Macintosh into the go-to tool for publishing and creative industries. Apple's stock flourished, but competition from IBM-compatible PCs forced Apple to expand the Macintosh product line, resulting in consumer confusion due to the large number of models. In response to the rising PC threat, Apple launched the Power Macintosh line with a new processor and partnered with IBM and Motorola, but strategic issues persisted. During this time, Apple also released the Newton, an early but unsuccessful personal digital assistant. Apple's attempts to replace its aging operating system led to a series of failed projects. Eventually, in 1996, Apple acquired Next for its technology, bringing Jobs back into the company. This acquisition led the groundwork for what would eventually become the Mac OS X operating system. In 1997, Apple was struggling, so the board removed CEO Gil Amelio. Steve Jobs stepped in as interim CEO, reconstructing the company. Jobs eventually became permanent CEO, leading Apple until he resigned in 2011 due to health issues. One of his first moves, though, was launching the Apple Store online, offering direct sales to boost revenue. Jobs also struck a surprising deal with Microsoft, ending their rivalry. Microsoft invested $150 million in Apple and promised to keep developing software for Macs. This deal brought much-needed stability and confidence in Apple's future. Jobs then focused on product innovation. He launched the iMac in 1998, a colorful all-in-one computer that was a massive hit. It sold millions of units, helping Apple regain its popularity. In 1999, Apple introduced the iBook, the first laptop to support wireless internet, making Wi-Fi more mainstream. In 2001, Apple released Mac OS X, a new operating system based on technology from Jobs' Next. It was stable, user-friendly, and allowed older Mac software to run on it. This marked a big step forward for Apple software development. In that same year, Apple opened its first retail stores, aiming to improve the shopping experience and control how its products were presented. The stores helped Apple boost its market share and attract new customers. In October of 2001, Apple launched the iPod, a portable music player. It started with 5 GB of storage and quickly became a cultural phenomenon, dominating the market. The iPod's success brought a huge boost of Apple's revenue, transforming the company's financial health. In 2002, Apple introduced a redesigned iMac with a sleek look, followed by the Xserve, a server aimed at business customers. This showed Apple's efforts to enter new markets and diversify its products. In 2003, Apple released the Power Mac G5 with a powerful IBM processor. It had a sleek metal design, marking the end of colorful plastic Macs. The G5 was the first 64-bit computer sold to the public and even helped Virginia Tech build one of the fastest supercomputers at a lower cost. In 2004, Apple launched the iMac G5 with all its hardware behind a thin, flat screen, making it the world's slimmest desktop. Apple was expanding rapidly, experimenting with new designs and products like the iPod Video and iPhone. They also opened their first stores outside the US, starting in Japan in 2003, then moving to Europe and Canada. Apple introduced smaller mini stores for places with less demand. It was this retail strategy that helped boost their market presence globally. Apple's web services began with iTools in 2000, evolving into .Mac and later Mobile Me, offering features like push emails for iPhone users. Although Mobile Me faced some issues, Apple improved its offerings with iCloud in 2011, adding more storage and backup services. The iTunes Music Store was a huge success, launching in 2003 and expanding to Europe, Canada, and Australia within just a couple of years. It quickly sold millions of songs, becoming a key part of Apple's business. By 2006, iTunes started offering videos too, and its sales skyrocketed with billions of songs and TV episodes downloaded. In 2005, Steve Jobs announced Apple's switch to Intel processors, allowing Macs to run faster and more efficiently. This change was completed a year earlier than planned, with Intel-based iMacs and MacBooks arriving in 2006. Finally, in 2007, Apple dropped computer from its name, becoming simply Apple Inc. At the same time, Jobs unveiled the iPhone, a revolutionary device combining a phone, iPod, and web browser, marking the start of a new era for Apple. By 2009, they had introduced the iPhone 3GS and kept up an annual release schedule, bringing innovations like multi-touch iPod models and smaller, improved Apple TV. The iPad launched in 2010. It was bigger than an iPhone, but had no phone capabilities. Despite fears that it might hurt Mac sales, the opposite happened. iPad sales boosted interest in other Apple products. Apple's growth took off in the 2010s, surpassing Microsoft's value by 2010. The shift from PC dominance to the rise of smartphones and tablets where Apple thrived left Microsoft hanging behind. Structural changes in Apple's leadership in 2012 led to new designs for iOS and macOS. They introduced several devices, including the iPhone 5, with a larger screen, iPad mini, and Mac updates featuring Retina displays. Apple continued innovating, acquiring Beats Electronics in 2014 and launching new products like the Apple Watch in 2015. However, critics noted that the watch lacked a clear purpose. Over the next few years, Apple improved its product lineup with advanced iPhones, iPads, and MacBook Pros. In 2017, they introduced the iPhone X with facial recognition and the Apple Watch Series 3 with cellular capabilities. By 2018, Apple was exploring new technologies like micro-LED displays for various devices. In 2019, they launched the iPhone 11 series, introducing the first iPhone with a triple camera system. The shift to 5G technology and the transition to Apple owners' silicon processors in 2020 marked significant milestones. Despite setbacks from the COVID-19 pandemic and a fine over slowing down older iPhones, Apple reached a $2 trillion market cap that year. In April of 2021, Apple released the M1-powered iPad and a Colonial M1 iMac, bringing back the nostalgic multicolored look from the late 90s. They also launched the AirTag, a GPS tracker that uses the Apple Find My network. Following their yearly trend, Apple introduced the iPhone 13 in 2021 and the iPhone 14 in 2022, with the iPhone 14 Pro debuting a new dynamic island display design. They also launched the Apple Watch Ultra for outdoor enthusiasts and the first Macs with M2 chips. Between 2021 and 2022, Apple faced employee unrest and protests about labor issues and gender inequality. Inspired by the hashtag #MeToo movement, employees used the hashtag #Apple2 and two Apple stores unionized for the first time. Amid these internal issues, Apple stopped product sales in Russia due to the Ukraine invasion. They focused more on privacy features, impacting revenue for some developers like Facebook, and hinted at moving production out of China. Apple introduced a Buy Now, Pay Later service in 2023 called Apple Pay Later, allowing users to split payments into 4 interest-free installments. In June, they launched the Apple Vision Pro, an augmented reality headset, but its high price of $3,500 led to poor initial sales. Later that year, Apple settled at a $25 million lawsuit over discriminatory hiring practices. By 2024, Apple made significant layoffs in its electric car and micro-LED projects, which had already been discontinued. In June, they announced updates like iOS 18 and macOS Sequoia. Despite falling behind in AI innovations, Apple planned to use ChatGPT to enhance Siri, introducing these features in the iPhone 15 Pro. This boosted their stock, making Apple temporarily the most valuable company. However, their legal troubles continued. The National Labor Relations Board accused Apple of breaking labor laws, such as restricting employee communication on social media and wrongfully firing a #Apple2 activist. Additionally, 2 female employees filed a lawsuit alleging biased hiring performance and review practices against women. As Apple continues to evolve, its future seems bright with exciting possibilities. The company is likely to push further into augmented reality, AR, and virtual reality, VR, with their Apple Vision Pro headset being just the beginning. Expect more immersive devices that blend the digital and physical worlds, possibly even changing how we interact with technology on a daily basis. The rumored Apple Car is another game changer, potentially revolutionizing the automotive industry with Apple's signature design and technological integration. But here's the question. Can Apple keep up its track record of revolutionizing industries, or will the next big thing pass them by? Only time will tell. If you're curious about what's next for Apple and tech in general, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on Mr. History. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.